250 million Americans take these every day, yet they're not absorbing what they think they're absorbing. These particles were 10 to 100 times too big to fit through your small intestine and get into your bloodstream. It was kind of like a shocking moment for me. Human breast milk tasted like crap, right? There's no way people are going to take it. So we solubilize everything, create a stable emulsion, put it into a gel matrix. We used to have people call customer service, believe it or not, and say, where on my skin am I supposed to rub this? Right now, we've got one of the highest, if not the highest, retention rate in the industry. Nothing much has really changed in this industry in 90 or so years.
So Douglas, I'd love to start by hearing what initially sparked the HealthyCell journey. Like, what was happening in your life that made you think this industry needs disruption?
Sure. So about 2017 or so, I had this company and we were selling supplements in pill form, like everyone else, tablets and capsules. And it was really more of a business need at first, and then it became more of a health passion need. So the business need was, in a hyper-competitive industry, to fracture out market share and really grow, you need something really innovative, something really different. And there were plenty of people doing that, finding ways to do things differently that were gimmicky, and that's just not me. I like to, if I'm going to put my life behind something, it's got to be real. So I was fortunate enough to run across a former Pfizer scientist who jumped ship, moved to the natural products world. He was working out of University of New England up in Maine at their School of Pharmacy. And he said, fly up here. I want to show you what I'm seeing in the lab. It's going to change the way you think about your business. So I said, sure. I went up there. He was taking the best-selling tablets and capsules at the time in the supplement world, putting them in test tubes of simulated stomach fluid and simulated gastric fluid, proving to me a lot of them wouldn't break apart. Mm-hmm. Those that did break apart didn't solubilize, meaning dissolve into solution. And that is a prerequisite for absorption. That must happen for you to absorb it. So instead, like the ones that broke down formed this sandy-like layer of material on the bottom of the test tube. And I said, well, can't people absorb that? He said, no, watch. Took it out and he ran it through particle size analysis at these big machines at the university and proved to me these particles were 10 to 100 times too big to fit through your small intestine and get into your bloodstream. So that was kind of like a shocking moment for me, that 250 million Americans take these every day, yet they're not absorbing what they think they're absorbing. And so not being a PhD in the space, I went and I got someone else to vet his work. I got literally the planet's top expert in supplement bioavailability. His name is Dr. Julian McClements, and he's got a lab at UMass. So I got these two on the phone, and they spoke the same language. UMass guys said, we see the same thing in our lab. We concur. We've been telling people this for years, and nobody listens to us. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I said to myself, okay, there's a problem. It needs to be solved. It started out as a business problem. How do we differentiate? And then it became more of a kind of health industry problem that people weren't getting the benefits that they promised, that these companies promised. So I said, what's the solution, to the doctor up in Maine? And he said, you have to understand, in nature, there's one thing that is the most effective delivery vehicle for nutrients for human beings. I said, what is it? Can either of you guys guess what it is?
Liquids, no?
Human breast milk. And so if you look at human breast milk, it's structured as a colloidal emulsion. And so the scientist in Maine said, you have to replicate human breast milk with natural gels. And so that's what we did. So we solubilize everything, fat solubles, water solubles, bring it together, create a stable emulsion, put it into a gel matrix that's gut healthy. And then we have to work on all the organoleptic stuff, right? Flavoring it, coloring it, good smell, good mouthfeel, and all that. Doing all that stuff naturally is challenging. So that's really where this came from, and it was shocking. Now that I look back on it in retrospect, nothing much has really changed in this industry in 90 or so years. People were taking pills back then. So long-standing innovation gap we closed.
Yeah.
Did you know that you were onto something extremely sticky when this was proven to you? And I mean, segueing into that, was it a long time after this that your microgel technology was created?
So the first time we created it, we did a multivitamin, and we were thrilled until we tasted it. It tasted like crap, right? We said, there's no way, as good as this is for people, there's no way people are going to take it. Right. So then it took us about 3 more years. We had to bring in food chemists, food engineers to figure out how to solve all those organoleptic challenges. Once we had it to a point where we thought it was good enough to launch, we launched. The hardcore people liked it. The other people weren't as sticky, so we kept iterating and iterating until right now, we're at this point where the taste is really good. It's the best tasting gel in the market. And what I'm most proud of at this company now is our retention rate. So right now we've got one of the highest, if not the highest, retention rate in the industry.
Wow.
And so that's kind of the final validation for me that what we were doing was something that was really sticky, much needed, really desired. And that's how we've grown the company.
And can you walk us through that retention and what are the bundles that you're offering? What's the formula that you found for growing LTV and increasing retention?
The best thing you can do for LTV and retention is focus maniacally on the product. It's got to be the best product that they can possibly get their hands on. It's got to do what it says it does. And there's nothing that you can do with post-purchase flows or anything else on the technical side or customer service side that's going to fix a product that isn't like inherently amazing to people, that they don't inherently love, right? So that's number one, get the product nearly perfect. After that, there are things you can do to help bolster that retention, to extend it. And so we do a lot of post-purchase flows that are very customized to the product that follow that person, that persona out and kind of let them know what to expect. So, month 1 after taking heart health, here's what you should expect. Month 2, here's what you should expect. With a teaser into month 3. Month 3, here's what you should expect. Okay, you're getting that. Wait till month 6. Here's what you should see in your lab work, right? And it's kind of staying with them on the journey, not just selling it to them and knowing that it's great enough that they'll keep taking it, but actually kind of guiding them through that process is big. Having excellent customer service is awesome. Also on the subscription side, because most of our business is subscription. And
right.
You really need a subscription platform that's incredibly flexible, that allows you to do things that can kind of pull up retention at any of your natural drop-off points, right? Whether it's, hey, you've been on it for 3 months, next month 4, you're going to get a free gift of purchase, or, you've locked in X discount. The longer you're on it, the less you're going to pay for it, right? And so you have kind of like escalating discounts with people who have been on the longest. There are really cool things you can do with some of the, like Loop. Loop is a great subscription program that we use now, and they've got incredible, flexibility with the way they can customize things.
It's so interesting because a lot of the teams that we're working with and a lot of the teams that we speak to, they almost overlook the importance of LTV and the importance of building something that is sticky once you get that first hit or once you execute on that first purchase. But you mentioned something interesting, which was get your product nearly perfect. Is there or was there a concrete moment where you guys thought, okay, this is nearly perfect, it's the right time to launch with this? Or was it more so just intuition, we'll iterate if we need to?
Yeah, so our contract manufacturers probably can't stand working with us because we bring in our own food engineers and we go through maybe I think our highest is 27 revisions to the original formula until we get it to the point where it's perfect. And some of them even say, look, we can't go farther than this. And I just tell them, look, you can't go farther than this. We're not going to sell the product. It's not going to be good for us or you, right? So we have to keep moving forward. We have to keep pushing. But even that said, when we launch, some of these products are at, a taste that's maybe like a 6 out of 10, right? And then we work on it, keep iterating, even while it's in market, right? The next run, it's a 7 out of 10. Keep iterating. The next run, it's an 8.5 out of 10, right? That's where we really see sales take off. And so it's not like it has to be perfect at launch, but you have to relentlessly keep improving it until you get to that point where it's near perfect.
Yeah.
And like you said, Pedro, it's a good point. You know, I see, especially in our space, but in other spaces too, a lot of businesses scale quickly by combining like great marketing with a mediocre or even a poor product.
Right.
So you see that up and to the right graph, but that's not sustainable, right? Eventually customers catch on, growth stalls, or it reverses. Then on the flip side, you have amazing products that never take off because the marketing just isn't there, right?
Right.
And then the real sweet spot, that diamond in the rough, and this is where I think we're approaching now, is when you have an exceptionally differentiated product that customers love and you have stellar marketing, right? That's when you get that sustainable growth and a brand that actually lasts. So for us, 76% of revenue comes from repeat customers every month.
Amazing.
56% on subscription. But what that tells you is we're under investing in top of funnel.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's our focus this year, is really scaling by improving top of funnel. We put all the money into R&D and clinical research for years, and then now we have the foundation in place. Now we need to grow. Most companies do it the other way, right? They put all the money into marketing first and then maybe never get to the R&D and clinical studies. So it takes patient investors when you do it our way, but I think it's ultimately going to create more value.
Yep.
Right. Well, so what was your initial launch like with the current line, or the current line of products, or the current product suite? Because you hit a very interesting nail where we see it all the time, where a brand will launch very quickly and very aggressively, and then you'll see a house of cards fall in regards to either retention or product quality. With you guys, was there a very gradual hiccup of hype or traction, or did you have an aggressive launch to begin with?
No, everything's been gradual. So, you know how you hear these brands where it's like, oh, we went viral on TikTok, or we found the magical meta ad that we can just keep putting zeros behind in the budget and it just keeps performing, without CAC breaking. Like, we never ran into any of that with us. It's been pretty solid and steady growth, which helps from an inventory management point of view too, by the way, but solid and steady growth. And we never raised a ton of money. So we've always been forced to kind of advertise with fumes as far as the advertising budget goes, right? Compared to some of these other companies that raise, 10, 20, 30, $40 million. And, they blow a lot of it on unprofitable growth to hit those top line numbers. Like, we're a profitable company. We've been profitable for 5 months, not just EBITDA, but NOI. And so, we will go out and raise a little bit of money now to grow faster, now that we have such a solid foundation in place. But it wasn't a sexy kind of like moonshot story. It's been gradual hard work.
I think the early days are the most interesting, though. And particularly in your case, are there stories that you can speak to on the first attempts you've had to introduce this new concept to the market? And how did people initially react to this microgel approach?
It's funny. Here's how new this whole delivery system is, and how new gels are to dietary supplementation. It's definitely becoming more well known now, but in the early days, we used to have people call customer service, believe it or not, and say, "Where on my skin am I supposed to rub this?" Right. So that's how new it is. They didn't even know you were supposed to ingest it, like a goo energy pack. For those of your listeners who don't know exactly how it's packaged, it's packaged like a goo energy pack, except it's not carbs, electrolytes, and sugar and caffeine. It's vitamins, minerals, herbal extracts in the most bioavailable form you can get. So you tear off the top and you suck it down. But there were people actually asking where to rub it. So that's how new it was a few years ago. Now you have some other brands in the space that are starting to build awareness for this form factor and gel. And that's really good for us because we're still at the tip of the iceberg. We've got so much growth ahead. And another thing that's the reason why that's good too is nobody does what we do, right? Like, a lot of single ingredients in a gel pack are coming out. So it's introducing people to the form factor and better absorption. But we only do multi-ingredient formulas around need states. So if you're interested in heart health, we'll go out and find all those things that impact blood pressure, triglycerides, cholesterol, figure out what has a statistically significant impact, what's the dose needed, put it all in one gel pack for you so you don't have to take 13 pills and buy 8 bottles a month, right? So that's kind of our core competency, and nobody's doing that right now.
Yeah. It's so interesting because when Matt introduced us, I took a look at the website, and the first thing I thought was, this delivery mechanism is so sticky. This is so appealing to the eye. It's so visual. And to your point about need states, to explain to the audience, who is HealthyCell for? Is there a particular segment of the market that you're trying to target? Is there a particular avatar? Or if you had to elevator pitch somebody, who would that somebody be?
So it breaks down like this. There's the brand level umbrella, which our customers fall under. Those customers, they already take supplements. So we're not trying to sell them on the need to take supplements. They tend to be more active, tend to be a little more educated, a little bit higher income because we're on the premium price side. And underneath that kind of large brand umbrella, there's all of these smaller umbrellas that are silos that are product specific. Each product has its own persona, right? And so actually several. So what we do is we do a lot of deep customer research ourselves. We don't hire outside firms or anything. So the insights we get and the personas are crafted through a combination of qualitative and quantitative analysis. What we do is we first conduct review mining of our reviews and our competitors' reviews, right? To find those common themes, pain points, motivations. Then we survey our customers to get more insights on their preferences and experiences. Then to deepen the understanding even further, we conduct video interviews one-on-one with our customers. And here's a key point: current and former customers, right? Both of them will give you different information. And this kind of research helps us really kind of craft typically 2 personas per product, sometimes 1, that really accurately represent that kind of target audience's needs and behaviors. And then we map that to the ads top of funnel, right? That's what we're doing now. And then those ads obviously speak to that persona. Then that leads to a landing page now. We used to drive people straight to our PDP. Now they're all separate landing pages. Mm-hmm. The landing page also speaks to that persona, right? So it's ad congruent with the landing page. Landing page goes deeper for them. And then, as I said before, once they buy, post-purchase flows that also speak to that persona. So it gets, when you have 10 SKUs, it's a lot of work, right? But
that's what it takes.
It's the best way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
So it's such a great, this conversation is extremely refreshing because it's such a great example of if you put in more work in the dark in regards to how you're actually serving your customer and actually listening to the person that you are serving, it isn't sexy in the sense of it isn't like seeing a 3x or 4x or a 10x ROAS immediately, but the amount of return and the amount of benefit that you are generating long-term for the company as a whole and for the customer, because you're effectively improving the experience and what they're getting it's 10x. Is there a particular need state that you guys are seeing which is much more popular, much more addressed within your customer base?
So our sleep product is one of our best sellers. So we stratify the products like this. Certain products are much easier to go out and acquire new customers with because they're more of an acute need state, right? You can't sleep. That's got a lot more draw and pull to it than a multivitamin. So we don't advertise our multivitamin, we cross-sell it. And so sleep, heart health, joint health are more acute need states where we're pulling in new customers, but we're cross-selling all of them the multivitamin and some of the other stuff. So our multivitamin is a bestseller, our sleep is a bestseller, but for different reasons, right? And on the sleep product, it's interesting because now that we've done all the work, that's actually published. We did funded an independent clinical study on that product. It's now published in the journal Sleep. It's like gold standard, right?
Wow.
Showing amazing results. And now we're starting to get celebrities reaching out to us who are taking our products that we didn't even know were taking our products, because oftentimes they're not buying them. Their handlers are buying them. And they're reaching out to us now saying, hey, love your product. Let's do some business together. Let's work together. And so it's exciting. It's an exciting time because now we can have them help us kind of amplify the story, that we're trying to do, building top of funnel.
Are there any celebrities that you can name drop or that you can talk about, or is everything pretty hush for the time being?
Until they do their first post, I can't talk about it. But I can tell you the first has about 40 million followers across social. The second has 20 million followers across social. The third has several million. I'm not sure exactly how many, but so significant amount of reach. And it's interesting because I look at marketing now and I say, that's great to go after, partnerships where they have a lot of reach. But I think in the future, you'll need to layer on kind of not the network graph, but the interest graph stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So like what you guys do at YWS with TikTok, it's not so much about the follower count, right? It's more about what's going to hook into the algorithm and go viral. And that has to do with content quality, right? So I think like companies like me are in this game now where you have to have kind of a base of network graph stuff where you've got ambassadors and strong followers because it's really hard. You can't ever guarantee that you're going to create something viral to hook into that interest graph algorithm on TikTok and soon to be Instagram and these others as they all adopt that interest graph. But it's kind of like two different things that you need to layer on top of each other. In my mind, at least. I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
We're witnessing what is called the TikTokification of social media, which is similar to what the gun did to harassment and such. It was the great equalizer where now you could be skinny and still defend yourself.
Yeah.
With TikTok, it's merit-based visibility. It is no longer the one who has the deepest pocket that gets the view. It's the one that is able to relate the best to the target audience.
Follower count doesn't matter, right, on TikTok.
Exactly.
As much, but you also agree with my point that if you're not there yet going viral, like there is no guarantee of that, so you have to have a kind of a backup plan to keep building your existing business, and that is kind of the follower count network graph approach, right? So it's interesting the way it's been changing.
And I'd love to actually underline what you were saying about market research and that pre-work analysis, because when it comes to social media, as someone who's starting out with a small following, the key differentiator is that market analysis. What's working for competitors? How is the audience reacting to what these guys are doing? And you, over time, find recurring patterns as to what pulls the strings. You apply that to your company, and your odds of success are significantly higher. One of my favorite saying is "fail to plan, plan to fail." And your story is a straight demonstration of that.
It's true. Yeah. We're setting out now to create a content machine here at the company. Not only for TikTok, but obviously also for Meta. And I think that the more efficient that machine is, and the more it learns, right, it's going to start churning out content that really connects and strikes a chord with your target consumers, and then I think you can put more ad dollars behind it.
Yeah, and what you're saying, and say the space that you guys are operating in is the perfect example of this. To your point about building a content team, any company, regardless of the industry, needs to be doing this. It isn't an option now. It's a wing of your business that you effectively need to be treating almost as if it's R&D, because your media is effectively a product in your product suite. It has a different delivery, it has a different intention, but it is the initial value that you are providing from an attention standpoint, from an interest standpoint.
100% agree. If you're not creating content like a machine these days, I think you're going to get left in the dust.
Yep, yeah. It's all a volume game. But it sounds that now that you've identified multiple personas per SKU, now it's time to scale. Would you be able to walk me through what scaling or what success in scaling looks like for you? What are the different approach or different types of messages that you took that really amplified that original breakthrough?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is if we changed nothing and just kind of kept what we were doing, we would easily coast into 20% growth this year, right? So where are those other bands where we can boost growth to 50, 70, 100%? And what I call kind of like capped upside, low leverage, incremental growth stuff. Um, you know, what we're doing on Google, what we're doing on podcasts. We have some podcast partnerships. Those things are labor intensive. They're lower leverage because they just can't scale as fast. Amazon is kind of like more of a point of sale. I think we pull new customers in from that ecosystem, but only on kind of some of the tangential search, search terms. It's really more of a point of sale than a new customer acquisition tool, at least in my mind. So that's kind of like, if we stay doing just that, we could coast into 20% growth this year. Then I look at what's called kind of like capped, but higher leverage, higher growth stuff. And so that band would be, meta ads, if we get it right, which we are getting it right now with our content machine here. Influencers and brand ambassadors, both kind of on a macro and even micro level.
Yeah.
And then some B2B business partnerships would fall into that band too.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next band up, which I call uncapped, high leverage, hyper growth, that's where I see this kind of interest graph type stuff with TikTok. So those are the three bands I see the growth in.
And what are the KPI? You said it's labor intensive, which is true. Can we speak to specific numbers that how the teams are structured on your side, whether it's from Google, Meta, the influencers, the partnerships, and what are KPIs that make you go from stabilize, or I should say stagnant results to exponential?
Yeah. So, I mean, our team is structured we have our CMO. She manages a bunch of creators with our content machine process. We have an in-house media buyer who's also an expert data analyst. So he pipes everything into Tableau and kind of slices and dices the data in any way really you want to see it. And so what we look at is really all boils down to CAC and LTV, right?
Cool.
So, and then you have to look at that and say, what's your payback period? So if you have more money on hand, you can afford a 6-month payback, right? But if you've got less money on hand, you need that payback within, call it 3 months, so then you can recirculate those marketing dollars and keep growing, right, without having to raise capital. So we look at LTV and CAC a lot. We also look at ROAS. The ideal is to have for example, like your Meta results come in at below X CAC and simultaneously above X ROAS, right? And so that's kind of where we try to keep things in those guardrails. Yep. So for us, it would be pull it in below $60 CAC and above a 1.6 ROAS. That's kind of like how much money can we spend in that lane with both of those guardrails not being broken.
I'm happy that you brought up LTV to CAC ratio. For you guys, what constitutes a healthy LTV to CAC ratio internally?
Yeah, I'll just pull it up real quick.
I'd love to speak about, with our clients, there are specific frameworks or net new creatives that we want to test a week that we know triggers viral hits. And ultimately, it's a simple equation. If we know that 1% of the net new videos that we make go viral, then we just need to increase the volume to predictably output, breakthrough moments. Have you noticed any framework as such, whether it's the amount of net new creatives or other aspects of the business that predictably get you these legs of growth?
So we're newer with this content machine. I mean, we've just started churning it out.
Mhm.
The more, the better. So I was talking to a guy that um, I think it was about a week ago that scaled his business to 100 million. Right? They do 3,000 ads per year. They're creating. If you break that down on a monthly basis,
That's
that's
a
250 ads a month, right?
yeah,
That they're churning out, which is like 8.3 ads a day. Like
yeah.
new, I'm talking about, like solid new concepts, but also including iterations on those concepts.
Okay.
We don't have the capability of doing that yet, but if we could churn out, 3 a day, maybe, I think that would be a really solid starting point. And we're getting there, but it's not just the concept. It's also, every iteration of that concept. If you're changing the hook, if you're changing the CTA, if you're
Yeah.
changing other little pieces around it. But like ideally I'd say I'd like to get to like launching probably 4 new ads a day.
Which I think is becoming reality for a lot of brands. Native tools on TikTok and soon to be on Meta provide that, where you upload all of your clips and the algorithm is going to mix and match until they find the winning formula. And so while
I
historically it has been labor intensive to get editors to make tweaks and change, minor variables, the algorithm, particularly a feature called GMV Max on TikTok right now, is doing that on your behalf. And so it allows you to scale, test new creatives a lot faster, but as well cut down. You can set rules such that if a creative doesn't hit certain benchmarks, it automatically get cuts, and the learnings of that help to make the next new creative.
we haven't done that yet. Like everything's done manually by a video editor
Mhm.
based on our direction. But tell me more about that. So are you uploading, for example, 10 different hooks, 10 different, middle pieces and 10 different CTAs with, 10 different text combinations or overlays, and they're just mashing it all together and keeping
Yep.
track of it?
Yep, that's right.
And that's not on Meta though. You're saying that's on TikTok?
TikTok, GMV Max.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a campaign that we're running on the paid side. And again, this ties to putting out a healthy amount of content, really narrowing down on what is your thing. It's interesting how many parallels there are in between developing a great product and developing that thing that consistently pulls out messaging that converts. Once you have that with AI, with how strong these algorithms are, it's incredible how much the work you do at the beginning effectively makes your life easier down the line when you are at a place of scale and you are at a place of effectively just amplifying.
You're right though. It's kind of two products. You create your actual product you're selling, but then what also gives value to your business is the product in the content iteration and creation machine that you have to kind of combine with your actual product you're selling in order to really amplify it. So I get what you're saying.
Exactly.
But
It's
back to CAC and LTV, like ours is a lot higher than 3 to 1 right now, but we'd like to bring it down to 3 to 1 so that we can service growth, right? Um, so it's really, I would say, too high right now. It needs to come down. We're not spending enough.
What's stopping you from just increasing ad spend at the moment?
The fact that we haven't raised a ton of money to keep growing. So it's a
Yeah.
budget. It's just a budget issue, right? So we have to manage cash flow.
Yeah, cash conversion cycles.
That's why ROAS is also such an important metric that we have to combine with CAC, because ROAS, if we meet a certain threshold, we're above 1.6 ROAS, we can pay ourselves back a lot quicker rather than if I've got $10 million in the bank, I can run a payback period that's 7 months, right?
Mhm.
8 months, 9 months. But I can't
Right.
do that unless I've got that kind of balance to back it up and fill those cash holes.
For sure. It leads me to wonder if you've also had campaigns. We run thousands of campaigns, and many of them teach us hard lessons, many related to cash conversion cycles. What's the story of a campaign where results surprised you, I guess, in a negative way? And what did you learn about your audience or your approach / strategy onwards?
Yeah, I think like a few years ago, we did some more traditional stuff where you would have to partner with a personality like a radio or TV personality, or, you know, I won't name names, but big radio conglomerate where you go in and they say, it's got to be a 6-month contract. It's got to be 20,000 a month. It's you have to give it time to show results. And whether it's a personality on TV or a podcast or traditional radio, that's total BS. And every single instance, we've known within the first week or two whether or not it's going to work. It's never one of these things, you know, you get the salespeople in line saying, well, you know, it takes 3 or 4 repetitions. They have to hear you 7 times, all BS. If it's going to work, it'll work within the first few weeks. And so we don't sign deals anymore that don't create a 30-day test period. Now we have an option to extend if it's working. Sure. We always have an out after 30 days.
What's an example of such situation working out well for you?
Meaning like that structure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where we've had podcast or, you know, people with podcasts, for example, that have got a few podcast personalities where one has 50,000 followers, one has about 200,000 followers now. The first deal we inked with them, we planned out the whole year on here's how many we want to do, here's how many we're going to pay per spot, but we want a 30-day test period. Mm-hmm. And it worked, so we continued, and we didn't even commit to the year after that. It was still like, you know, typically either always a 30-day out or a 60-day out in case it starts trailing off. But we've had some success with podcasts like that, believe it or not, where it's you know, they drive hundreds of new customers a month at a really low CAC. The problem is to find one like that, you've got to go through 7 or 8 that don't work.
Of course.
And, you know, it's just super labor intensive to go out there, identify them, talk to them all, send them product, get their feedback. You know, it's a grind, where that's why I call it a lower leverage activity versus some of this higher leverage stuff.
Yeah. Looking back at your journey so far, because we've talked about podcasts, we've talked extensively about content. Is there a particular channel that is pushing a lot of weight for you guys that perhaps a listener, founders listening to this, they wouldn't expect it to be pulling weight necessarily?
Sure. In our case, over 20% of customers come in through word of mouth.
Wow.
Right? And so that circles back to what we talked about in the beginning, is your product has to be awesome. Like, right. Near perfect, really providing value. People love it. So when you have that kind of word of mouth generation of new customers, that takes a lot of pressure off of some of the paid activities, because your blended ecosystem CAC, you know, is healthier when you have $0 CAC bringing in 20% of your customers.
100%. And it's so interesting, because when, notably in the CPG space, when we speak about content, it's perhaps one of the main use cases as to why there's such a huge wave of CPG brand, whether you're in supplements, misc food and beverage, et cetera, why there are so many brands that are going on to short form content and seeing it as a viable tool or a viable source of client acquisition is because you're operating on lean margins. And to your point, if you're able to spread a wildfire of word of mouth in a systematic way, which is effectively what short form content and affiliates are, there's such a huge base of leverage that you can build, to your point, when you do get onto the paid side. And looking back, because you guys have gone through quite a journey, and it's super refreshing that your growth has been gradual. Is there something that you guys would have done differently if you had to redo the journey up until this point?
Sure. I think it was toward the end of 2021, our production facility got struck by lightning, burned the roof off, and destroyed all of our ingredients. And so we basically didn't have product for 4 months. So we almost went out of business. And
insurance covered?
No, we didn't get any coverage for anything.
Wow.
And so the learning from that was to build redundancy in your system, right? And so we have 2 manufacturing facilities now that can each make any of our products. And if I had to do it differently, I would have had that in place prior to the lightning strike because that stunted our growth a bit, you know?
Right. And we're so excited to blow this up because this is a product that has so many green lights behind it, and it's really exciting what you guys are building. Looking at the supplement space and the industry that you guys are operating in, where do you see the space heading in, say, the next 3 years? Are there any major changes that founders or consumers alike should be paying attention to or should be looking out for?
Yeah, I think next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see a shift away from pills, which is, the wave that we're on right now. I guess the category we're building is gels. People are tired of handfuls of tablets and capsules, not feeling a difference, right? And then the second, I think, is going to be the fact that results will become more measurable. So people won't take these on blind faith anymore. You've got platforms like Function Health, Superpower, Life Force. These are biomarker health platforms where consumers are actually now self-tracking their blood, urine, hair, et cetera, biomarkers. They can see whether things are working or not, right? They're not just taking it on blind faith. And so if you combine that with the wearables now today that can track things like sleep, energy, stress, then you're starting to get kind of quantified qualitative. What was previously qualitative data is now quantified. So you can really start seeing the impact of some of these interventions, including supplements. And I think it'll start shaking out some of the ones that don't really make a difference. So I'd say that's kind of all within the next 3 to 5 years. And the third, which may be 10 years out, is personalization, right? On a true N of 1 basis at scale is still out of reach. It's too expensive, too complex. And I don't think there's the mass demand for it yet, but it is building. And so 10 years from now, I think we'll see a convergence of biomarker integration and also economic models that make sense, that make it more affordable to do it at scale, and also production capabilities like, for example, custom gel blending, right? Based on your personal algorithm for what you need at any given point in time, which is fed by your biomarkers, is fed by, maybe geographic data, where you live. Are you in the north? Is it winter time? Should we add some vitamin D? I mean, I think we will go there eventually, but that's probably a good decade out.
Yeah. Robotics is probably needed.
Yes.
That's very well. Yeah.
I agree.
So exciting though.
It's cool stuff.
Yeah. FOMO is hitting me.
Yeah. And so tying HealthyCell to all of this, where can people find you? Where can people try you guys out? What is the best place to learn about what you guys are building and hop on the boat? Because you're really, for anybody watching, if you're looking for a brand that is truly pushing a space forward with something that's truly 0 to 1, you guys are a great example of it.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, we've got, if you add it all up, it's about 4,000 retail doors that have requested to stock us. We can't handle it. Like, we don't have the bandwidth or the trade spend budget to get into that game right now. And if I take money away from a profitable D2C business that's growing and put it into the retail business for lower margins, the opportunity cost is just too much. So we've got to wait until we raise, I think, a more significant amount of capital to execute the retail plan. We do have a few hundred stores. If you're out in LA area, you can go to Erewhon, Lassen's. We've got a few natural chains in Chicago, Florida, where we're testing, and it's outselling incumbents in every need state where we play, even though we don't really have much of a trade spend budget at retail to support it. If you're not in those areas, you can go to HealthyCell.com, HealthyCell.com, or just type it into Amazon. And those are probably the best 2 ways to get to us.
Fantastic. Do you sell in the US only or worldwide?
So we just signed a deal late last year and launched in January with iHerb. So iHerb is the third largest supplement selling website in the world behind Amazon and Walmart. And so their model is interesting. So we basically send them pallets of product, and they have a website that's then kind of it's replicated in, I think it's over 100 countries now. I don't know the exact count in those countries' languages. And so anybody can order us in other countries through iHerb. Prior to that, we'd get requests all the time, and we had to shut down international shipping because it kept getting stuck in customs, or VATs are levied on it, and then people abandon it because they don't want to pay the VATs. So we decided not to go international until iHerb stepped in, and they're our international partner now.
Okay.
Amazing.
So from Dubai, we can get it. Douglas, thank you for hopping on.